Cool. Yes. All right. So I wanted to share with you a video of the different types of saturated fat I cook with in my kitchen. See if we get all these angles going on. Cool. So these are all the fats that I'm using when I'm putting something in the oven, in my Instant Pot, in the stove. Anything that's getting exposed to heat has one of, or maybe more, one of these fats in there. So when we're wanting to start cooking with saturated fat, we really want to make sure it's from a quality source. So whether it's from like a bottle off the shelf or from an animal product that we're cooking with at home. So bacon would be a good example of this, something that we're getting, packaged that we then want to render the fat to reuse in other cooking ingredients and recipes. Then they're from good quality sources. So good quality animal fats are going to be much more nourishing to our system than the not so great ones. And so if there's one area in your grocery budget that you could splurge a little bit more money on, I really urge you to try having good animal proteins. Making sure that when you're buying things like bacon, that it doesn't have the additional ingredients like sugar, the natural flavors. We're really just trying to get a good quality product. So again, if you can spend the extra money there, it's great because then you get your protein source, that's a great quality, and as a byproduct, you get all this tasty fat. So it's a cool way to just kind of supplement your macros. So I'll jump right in by talking about beef fat. So this fat is some fat that I rendered here in my kitchen on the other side of you by making bone stock. So I got some really great grass-fed, grass-finished bones from the co-op for free. I was very excited. I will cook my bone stock and then take the stock, leave it on the counter for a little bit until it cools down before putting it in the fridge so that I don't overwork my fridge and have anything else kind of get exposed to the heat and go bad. But what happens is the next morning when you take the bone stock off, you get this nice big fat cap at top. And so this comes up, this is the underneath, this is the top side. The underneath is normally going to have some extra little bits of goodness. That goodness could be the spices that were left on any of the bone or skin that you're cooking down, but it's also a little bit of marrow. And that's totally fine. If you're someone who wants a really, let me wipe my hands now. If you're someone who wants a really clean product at the end, like this delicious tallow, you can basically just scrape off that back part. But I don't really mind the extra seasoning. So that's reserved from my bone stock. Then I have another one of beef tallow, and this again is rendered beef fat. So the way I got this was at my co-op, they actually sell frozen adipose tissue, which sounds disgusting. You don't just want to like chop that off and cook with it. I mean, you can. So instead, if you put it in your Instant Pot on a really low temperature and basically slow cook it, or if you have a slow cooker and put it on a low temperature and let it just do its thing, just render down, then you do get that really nice kind of clean look to it. And that'll keep for a super long time. The cut that I got of the tissue was able to make 3 of these, so it was really nice. One thing that you can also use beef tallow for is skin health. It's a really great moisturizer, and I didn't think it was that weird to use because it is high in vitamin A, D, E, and K. It's very compatible, so your body absorbs it well. Yes, it does smell beefy, but once I started using it, my skin loved it, and so I didn't think it was that weird. And then my coworker, we were talking about skincare products, and I was asking what she uses, so we were talking about different oils, and then she asked, what do you use on your skin? I was like, beef tallow. And just her face, she was just so horrified and shocked, and told Woody, I'm like, I don't think it's that weird. And he's like, it's basically telling someone, like, I use bacon grease, just rub that on my face. I was like, oh yeah, that is totally how she interpreted it. But works great. Cool to do that. One thing about beef tallow is it is one of the higher temperature fats. Fast food restaurants actually used to use beef tallow to fry potatoes in. So if you're doing something that needs to be cranked up to a high heat, beef tallow is good for that. Yeah, I get excited. One other way to use beef tallow, aside from if you're trying to fry something, is to use beef tallow whenever you're cooking ground beef. A good way to up the fat content of your ground beef, add some beef tallow to it. It is very meaty, so if you're adding it to a dish that is going along with steak or some type of cut of beef, that's a lot better than adding it like, oh, I cooked chicken and I'm wanting to cook some carrots on the side. Maybe cook the carrots in the chicken fat versus the beef tallow, because it can get a little weird. It can get a little weird. So the next one I have is bison tallow, and this is from a company called Epic. I'll try to get up close here. So this one's pastured. Again, you're looking for pasture-raised ingredients. And the ingredients on this one, because it was from the store, I mean, just because I love looking at ingredients, I always make sure, is that the only thing in there? So yes, ensure it is. Ingredients is pastured bison tallow. So this one's pretty meaty in terms of like smell, flavor. You can see we really liked it. But bison tallow would be a good one if you're cooking bison. If you're cooking any more like gamey meats, that's a nice one to add to it. But also it pairs nicely with if you're making ground beef and you don't have beef tallow, throwing some bison tallow in there is a good option as well. The next one I have is some chicken fat. So whenever I buy chickens, I'm either buying a whole chicken that has, all the parts to it, bone in, skin on, or if I'm buying chicken thighs, I'll buy, again, skin on, bone in chicken, because not only can I then save the bones for a bone stock, but I can get more fat from that chicken. So when you're buying skinless chicken, it's a leaner cut. But when you're getting that skin on there, it can get like real crispy, really good crunch to it. But it also just produces more fat that comes off. So this was some fat from a chicken that we saved. Scrambled eggs in the morning, I'll throw a little bit of that in there. The next one that I recently tried that I love now is rendered duck fat. And so again, this is that company Epic that I shared for this one here. It honestly doesn't taste like much. So it's pretty helpful to use when you're wanting like less potent flavor. We made some steak fries in the oven the other night and we used this duck fat for it and it turned out really tasty. I'm like trying to get it open. So yeah, not really that potent. So the next one that I have is some saved pork fat. This was from a porchetta that Woody and I cooked. If you don't know what a porchetta is, think about a big pork belly, gets a ton of seasoning on it, rolled up, tied up, nice little slits in it, set in the oven, and then it gets super crispy on the outside and nice and moist on the inside. As it's cooking in the oven, it'll pour off so much fat into the bottom pan that you're using. So an easy way to save the fat if you don't have a cast iron pan that you're cooking in is to layer the bottom layer with aluminum foil. So then it makes for an easy cleanup, but you can just strain off the fat. So use like a little sieve. You can strain it off and then you get all this tasty fat. And I like to use this when, because it has the seasoning already pretty potent in there. Yeah, I like to use it for something that I know I want some extra seasoning to. So if I'm ever like, oh, I don't really know, like I'm not in the mood for specific seasonings, like I'll use that and it tends to be a good improvised meal. The next thing that I have, so nice to have amazing, nice, thoughtful friends. One of my good friends sent me a gift of lard from Canada. And I am so excited to try this. I have yet to use this. I have cooked with a lot of lard, but just it's so beautiful. I seriously feel emotional about it. It just looks like this lovely glass of like milk, even though I don't like milk, but it's like, I don't know. I'm so grateful and so excited to try this. So I'll give you an update when I use that. The last thing I wanted to talk about was coconut oil. Coconut oil is good to cook with at higher temperatures. However, I don't do a whole lot of cooking with coconut oil anymore, but it's really nice if you can tolerate coconut oil and just the coconut or like products in general. I was going to say coconut world, but if you can tolerate coconut oil, then sure, go ahead and use it. I don't really know. I'm not like super stoked on it anymore. But if I was making something like sweet potatoes or what else would I use it for? I have this recipe for fat bombs that I really like that I would use it in. But I found for me digestively, I work better without it. But it is something that's good to add to kind of some of like sweeter recipes